How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to dive into the new materials that Quixel has made for us, but not in the same way that we have done before. In my past videos I actually showed you all the new settings that we have here, but if you've been around this channel for a while, you know that I love to tinker and I love to tweak and create new stuff with the Quixel materials, but they have changed some things. So that is what we are going to look at today. We're going to look at where things are within the new Quixel materials, how to access them, and how can we make some changes to them so we can still customize their material as much as we like. Now, before we get started, remember the best way to support the channel is by leaving a like, leaving a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and ring that bell for notification. That really helps me out. If you are new to the Quixel materials, if you just got in with this new update, now let me walk you through something real quick. The way you're going to access your master materials is by going down here and clicking on the magnifying glass. Actually, it's going to take you to the folder where your master material is going to be. Now, this is what we want to look at, because what we're looking at here is an instance. This is not the material itself. It's an instance, so we can play with all the values that they give us. But I want to see the actual material notes and what they're made of. So I'm just going to double click it and we're going to get in here. All right, so before we actually go in there, I'm going to show you just to remind how the material used to look like. So this is what we're used to see. If you're new to the channel, this is what we're dealing with in the previous videos. And this is, if you have seen my previous videos, this is what I usually use to create all those landscape materials and all that, the RVT and that other stuff. Now, the material has now changed to this. And you can see that it's very, very different. And it may be scary because where is everything now? But don't worry, I'm gonna walk you through exactly where to go and where everything is so we can all be on the same page and we can tweak everything to our liking. So let's start with this whole new setup that we have right here. So we have this make attribute. So if you've seen my RVT videos, my blending videos, you've seen me use the attributes material. So that'll be this one right here. We have a slot for displacement, but you see that where is everything that we used to have? Like all those nodes that we used to control are now not longer here. The reason why they are not longer here is because they are now stored in a function. So you might be thinking, well, Quixel just made things harder for us. Now if I want to make my own material with their stuff, I'm going to have a hard time. And it's actually the opposite. Quixel just made it easier for us to tweak their materials by giving us functions and making everything super tidy, and everything is actually super easy to find. So if we wanted to go to displacement, we will just double click this function and it will take us to all of the controllers we used to have. Now the difference is we don't have the texture sample within this function. We just have kind of different controls. So as you can see, we have a vector 3 over here that's going to help out with the subtract and divide for the displacement. But as you can see, we can just get into the function, make tweaks to the function, and then we can just come back to our material and everything will be there. Everything will be stored for us, and we don't have to have all that copy pasting that we used to do and all the stuff all hanging around right here. It's all very tidy and very clean. All right, so I'm going to skip this function for now because I'm going to show you how to tweak the material, and we're going to be adding a emissive slot into this function. You can see there's no emissive slot, so we're going to add one to it. But before we get that, let's go and look at the other stuff that's hanging out here. So right here we have our regular texture samples. So they're just converted into parameters so we can modify them from our instance. This is pretty straightforward and kind of the same that it used to be. The older thing that is different here is the MF tiling. So MF is short for master function, and we're just going to get into it. And as you can see, we have all the tiling controls. We have texture coordinates, and then we have an append with a vector 3, which is their new way of giving us some of those tiling controls that we have. So we have the texture coordinate here. It's being multiplied by these. We have a rotation angle, and we have this node right here that will allow us to do all of these wonderful things like the tiling and the rotation offset that we see on our material instance. So if I go back into our main material, now we can just take out all the plugs that we need and put it into the other materials. That's why I say this is much easier than it used to be. And we have this detail normal tiling function. Let's get into it. And as you can see, it's very similar to the tiling coordinates, as you can see over here. Now let's get into adjustments. This is what I find to be the main part or the core of the new material. So if we double click it here, you're gonna see how many things we have. So this function is actually containing everything that we used to have in the previous material. Most of the things that you see here, you're gonna see for detailed normal. This is all the actions that we're going to be taking, not for tiling, but for other things. And you're gonna see that we have these scalar parameters here. Like for instance, in the detail normal, we have normal strength. We also have normal override. And again, these are some things that I'm going to talk in another video. I'm just showing you how the nodes are composed because we're going to make some changes and I'm going to show you how to do it. So the reason why I mentioned this is the core of our material is because this is where we have the material attributes. So if we wanted to do something extra to our material, if we wanted to add something to it, it will have to be within this function. And as you can see, there's something very particular here. What's driving each and every one of these is actually an input function that it's a vector 3, and I'm going to show you how to get it. And that is what we're going to do to activate the emissive slot, because the reason why you didn't see the emissive slot activated over here is because there's no input coming into these material attributes. So when it goes out, it's not registering it, and that's why we don't see it, because it's not being used. So I'm going to walk you through something really quick and easy on how to set that up. All right, so for what I'm going to do, the best thing that you can do, especially if you're doing this the first time, so you don't have to go through the trouble of re-importing everything if you did something wrong, is to make a duplicate. So if we go back, this is the folder where we started, and we have a default material. I've already made some copies. All you have to do is right click on the material and make a duplicate, name it whatever you want, whatever makes sense to you. And this is what we're going to be using in the end. Regarding the functions, you're gonna see that we have a folder called functions here. We didn't have a folder like this before. Now, if we go into it, you're gonna see several functions that are within our master material. The one that we want to be tweaking for this tutorial is the master function map adjustments. So this is the one that you're going to make a duplicate so you can work with. If there are any errors, if you run into any troubles, you can just delete it, make another copy or whatever you want. That way you don't break your original material and you don't have to re-import everything again for a second try. Okay, so I'm going to get into my duplicate so we can start making the adjustments. All right, now that we are over here, we're going to add one of these inputs that we have here. So these are input vector options. So what you could do is just copy and paste this, but I'm going to show you how to find them. So right click, we go into input, and it's right here under functions. It's function input. So we click that, and if you want to make this one look like the ones that are already in there, all you have to do is click this arrow and instantly it looks like one of those. The other thing that we need to change is the name. So we go over here, we're just going to type emissive, and you're going to see that instantly we have a name. So that's how they made these. They just have a function and they give it a name. This is how we're going to create the input for our function. Now what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit of a treatment. So I'm going to add some extra nodes, you could add this to emissive color right away, and that'll be it, and we can add a map. But when it comes to emissives, I like to tweak them and make sure I have a value where I can up the intensity of my emissive. So from here, I'm actually going to hold the letter M, click to get us a multiply node. I'm also going to hold S to get a scalar parameter, and I'm going to name this emiss intensity. Okay, just shorten out the word right there. And we're going to plug this into A and B. And this is what we're going to plug into emissive color. Now I'm going to apply. And I'm going to go into my master, which is this one right here. This one that I make for this tutorial. And what we're going to do is we're going to substitute this function with the function that we just created. So let's go here. And all you have to do, let me make this a little bit smaller so we can do it on screen, is we're going to grab this function, click and drag over here. And there you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the plugs from these functions and transfer them into this function right here. A quick and easy way to transfer the cables into one plug into another is by holding control. So if you hold control, and once your little hand appears, you can grab it and plug it into each other. So now we're gonna see an error here. Don't worry about that. We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to replug everything into this function right here. So hold control. Once your hand appears, click, hold, and drag it to your next plug. So we're going to keep doing this. This makes things very easy when plugging things back. And we're going to also plug the result into this one right here. So you can see that we still have an error. I'm actually going to get rid of this function. I'm going to drop my function over here. And if we read down here what our error is saying, we're going to see that we are missing the input for emissive. That means that this is not going to compile unless we have an input for this new emissive that we created. Now that error is very easy to solve. All we have to do is create a texture sample for it. So I'm going to look for sample. And over here in sample, you see that we have texture sample parameter 2D, which is pretty much the same as those we have right here. I'm just going to call it emissive. I'm gonna drop it here so everything is nice and tidy. I'm also going to give it the tiling options that we have. And I'm just going to plug it into the UVs. And we're going to plug the RGB from this into our emissive. And that is it. The error went away and our master material is ready. So I'm just going to hit apply. It's going to compile a little bit. Now what I have here is one of the Megascans material that I showed you in the beginning. And what we need to do is to bring that new displacement material into this slot for it to take effect. So right now you're seeing that there is no emissive slot whatsoever, and we don't have the extra scalar parameter. But if I were to go here, and I were to go down here and take my material, click this little arrow, which means that you're going to add the asset on the content browser into this slot, you're going to see that all of a sudden the new emissive slot that we created shows up along with the new scalar parameter. That means things have taken effect and we are good to go. Now for this particular tutorial, I'm using the Quixel logo to make this material to have a emissive Quixel logo in the middle, because I thought that would be the easiest thing for you guys to see how that change take effect. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to activate both of them, and we are going to drop this texture map into this slot. So I'm just going to click on the arrow, and now we have it over here. But if we look at our material, there's nothing there. And the reason for it not to be there is because our emissive map has a multiplier that we just gave it. So right now we have a multiplier of 0, and when you multiply things by 0, you get 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the intensity of this so we can see our emissive map showing up on our sphere. So I'm going to type, let's say 15, and there it is. There is our big Quixel logo with some nice emissive all around it. So let's just see how this would look on a plane. So I'm actually going to deactivate these first so you guys can see the difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plane here. I'm actually going to hide these floor, and I'm going to bring in a plane, and we're going to make this, I don't know, 8, just so we have a bigger size to see. I'm actually going to go into my light and make it movable so that message goes away. And we're going to look for that material. We're going to go into the concept browser, Megascan surfaces, layer rock. It's this one right here. And we're going to throw that over here. There you go. Okay. So just like I showed you before, this plane doesn't have our Quixel logo because we just turned it off. If we turn it on, there you go. And in this case, you can play with the emissive. You can add whatever emissive map you want, but as you can see, we have some nice emissive map into one of our Quixel materials. All right, everybody, that is it for this video. I just wanted to show you how you could get deep into the new updated materials and do your own changes, customize it to your liking, and do those extra stuff. Like for instance, in this example, we added an emissive map, but I'm also going to be a ton of other stuff. We're going to be looking at more landscape maps with these updated materials. If you like this video, please leave a like down below, leave me a comment. What would you be using this for? What customization will you add to your Quixel materials? And also let me know which other tutorials would you like to see on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.